Hey everybody, today I'm going to break down some of the process that went into directing and editing this project I did for my buddy Dom. He runs a local print shop named Cathead Press, and so we did a spec piece for him and his business. And I just want to kind of take you through what it looked like from the pre-production standpoint, how we got things rolling, and then kind of dive into the final product. I just want to take you through some of my, my directing toolkit, if you will. I use Milanote to help communicate with the client, in this case, my buddy Dominic, and my crew, such as my DP or first AC or anyone else who's going to be on the shoot, to sort of help communicate the visual ideas that I'm playing with and make sure that we're all on the same page going into a production. So first things first, I will pull up Milanote. Okay, so we open up Milanote, and you can see here I have a couple boards, but we're going to go to Cathead Press Indy. Once we get into Milanote, you can see I've broken things up into a couple of different sections. So here I have some cinematography inspiration that I used to help communicate with my director of photography about sort of the look I was going for. Some lighting examples. I tried to pull some things from print shops. There's a Naked Tom Sachs, but this is generally gonna help give the cinematographer sort of the look I was going for. In this case, I wanted the colors to really pop, but it to sort of have this nice contrasty look, sort of big decisions, big shapes, and the lighting. The big thing when I'm starting a project is I'll meet with the client, again, in this case, Dominic, and I'll kind of tell him about the idea that I have for the piece, and then see if that aligns with his vision and what ideas he might have. He's the business owner in this case, so any story points that he wants to hit or any cool things that he wants to highlight about the business, I really want to get that information in sort of a preliminary meeting. And then that helps me go back into my world, into the pre-production world, and sort of craft these concepts or find the themes that we want to hit on. And in this case, we conducted an interview, so it helped me type up a big list of questions. So when it came time for the interview, I was able to go down my list and make sure we hit all of our points. And I try to, when I'm typing up my interview questions, I try and think about the flow of the piece, so how one question might lead into the next. I try and think about that beforehand so the conversation can feel natural when we're having it. And in our first meeting, I like to take notes. So like I said before, I try and think about some of the themes of the piece, or another way of thinking about that is like some of the subjects that you want to tap into. I also like to go in with an idea of what we're going to come out with, right? I want to make sure I set realistic expectations with the client. So going into this, I was like, I think we can make you a really cool 30-second to 2-minute piece. We could put it on Instagram to promote your business, and it'll be a great portfolio piece for me. So I go into the meeting with a couple questions in mind, have Dominic tell me about himself, how he wound up where he is, a little bit about the history of the business and some of the services that they offer. And then in the conversation, that the questions will unfold naturally. Some of the things I'm not thinking about, Dominic might just bring up kind of naturally. So in our conversation, we were able to come up with more story points. And then I did a rough draft of the interview questions before I finalized that and sent that over to Dominic so he could prepare and approve all the questions. And then from there, what I like to do is I like to get with my cinematographer and create a shot list so we can sort of break down different sections of things that we'll need. And this one that we crafted, it's not the most specific shot list of all time. It's not every single shot that wound up in here, but we were able to sort of break it out into categories of what we were looking for. And then on the day, we were able to craft the shots and really get into it. And last but not least, I like to make a gear list of what we're going to be using for the shoot. so that everybody's on the same page and we don't forget anything and have to run errands and kind of waste time on a production day. So for this shoot, our buddy Will Wirtz actually lent us his Aria Mira, which was like incredibly kind. And then Joe Frank, who was the first AC on this, he had a bunch of lenses and whatnot. My DP, Curtis Bowersock, he had a lot of lights. So we were able to just gather a bunch of things that we already had at our disposal so that we could keep the costs down. So Milano, for me, this is just, I can click this link, I can send an email, everybody can kind of see all of these different thoughts instead of sending, this document and that document and having just a big messy email thread. I like having this link where everyone can kind of check in. Everything's just centrally located. So I really love Milano. It's really easy to use. It helps me gather my thoughts and then get the team on the same page. So if you haven't checked it out already, I really recommend it. No one's paying me anything to say this. I just really like it. I guess I'm gonna pause and then we'll pull up the edit, I suppose. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my project for the Cathead Press doc. So we open up our project, and now that we're in,
it's a radical act to work for yourself or run a small business.
Maybe we'll just do a little watch through.
Because it goes against the sort of norm of capitalism. So, in that way, I like what I do.
So the way that we shot this, we actually, we shot this over the course of 3 days, and we saved the interview for the last day, which is not how I usually like to work. I usually like to do the interview first, and I think sometimes within that, that helps me figure out what other coverage we might need, what other detail shots we might need to help those sound bites pop. But we kind of did it backwards this time. I think it turned out well. But usually I like to get the interview first. So we start out with this really nice zoom shot, and we use a couple really cool zooms. That's kind of a new. It's kind of a new thing in my process is using zoom lenses, but I really like it, that nice, long, slow creep. It's got a very vintage feel to it. So our interview setup, we had two cameras. We had the Arri Alexa, and then we had Blackmagic 4K SRB cam. But this VHS wall, it doesn't have anything to do with screen printing, but I feel like it says a lot about Dominic and who he is. Also, it's just like very aesthetically pleasing. There's a lot of cool colors and shapes happening in the background there. So we chose to shoot it in front of this, even though someone else would have chosen to do it in front of the printing press or something like that. But really wanted to highlight Dominic's personality in this piece as well as the business. So that kind of factored into this decision. We wanted to start with like a pretty punchy soundbite. This soundbite was like perfect for that. He's a business owner, but hates capitalism. So I think that's like a beautiful, it's a beautiful little snippet and insight into who he is as a business owner.
It's a radical act to work for yourself or run a small business. Because it goes against the sort of norm of capitalism. So in that way, I like what I do.
In the edit, I wanted to have these breaks where these close-ups and the sound is doing a lot of work. Screen printing is a really tactile process, so I wanted the viewer to be able to feel that. And so we really focused on capturing these detail shots that have like movement and life, and the sound design, we wanted to really punch that up. We wanted to capture like the texture of the thing, as well as being a way to like break up the interview and a way to segue from one section to the other. This was really a way to sort of like highlight the process. And here's another really beautiful zoom shot. We're establishing our location. Another piece of Dom's personality. He owns this van where sometimes he does like mobile printing out of it. It's this cool retro van. the VHS tapes, we're kind of getting a picture of who this guy is. He's sort of like, he's like a man of another time. He values these things with like sentimental and aesthetic value. So
you do question. That's the answer. I really didn't start getting into screen printing.
That section there, that's another example of what I was talking about with the sort of tactile nature, the grabbing the squeegee and grabbing the bucket and ripping the tape, and everything's just very hands-on.
I really didn't start getting into screen printing till I was in graduate school. That's mostly what I do now.
And for some of these wider shots, we use this like really, really beautiful 14 millimeter lens with a Pro Mist filter on it. So if you look, the highlights have this really nice glow to them.
I'd always been into art. I've always been creative as a kid and stuff, but I never thought of art as something to pursue as a career or as anything else, really. I was sort of looking for my own studio. I was like trying to find a space that I could just have a personal studio. And I was like, well, why not just like open a like community-based print shop?
So that's another theme that we wanted to touch on with this is community. Dominic does a ton of work for other local businesses, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bookstores. So community is like really important to him. Continuing to hone in on that theme, you see, we'll kind of get away from it for a little bit, but then at the end we come back to it. So finding these themes and these threads that you can weave in and out of your story, I think is really important. So that's something I'm always looking for, especially with documentary work, is like, what is the larger statement? Like, what's the reason for making the thing?
And I just said, I'm going to do this. And, I talked to some friends and colleagues that.
So we implemented like a couple different camera techniques. You'll see we go handheld sometimes. We do the zooms like I mentioned before, but there's also a lot of dolly stuff, a lot of side to side and a lot of end to out. For me, especially this shot right here, that dolly out for me, I'm always thinking about like visual portraits when the character, the subject breaks the fourth wall and looks at the camera, and we're able to sort of do this shot that's like a moving painting.
We just got rolling on it.
So this right here, when he turns on the lights and we see the light flicker on in various different spaces and he walks in to the wide shot, that's something like I knew before going into that's how I was going to edit that. And I knew that this would be a good way to, again, segue from like one subject to the next.
We just started building out the space, bought some equipment, and then started rocking and rolling, getting people into the shop. A lot of the people I print for are other small businesses like myself. So, I print for a lot of restaurants in town, a lot of retail spots, other, small organizations or nonprofits.
Again, sound is really important to this piece, as well as it, since it's such a tactile process with a lot of hands-on stuff. The sound is really important. It kind of fills in those gaps while also giving us a moment to breathe. So it's not just talking. It helps us out with the pace of the thing. It helps us ebb and flow.
I definitely wanted to contribute to the community that already existed and be a part of it. I just want to help people do cool stuff, and I want to help people realize their creative ideas. So if I can provide a space or even just feedback or thoughts or ideas that help someone else be creative or figure out something cool they want to do, I think that's what it means to me to run a space.
Another thing we were always thinking about was color. So what Dominic's wearing, this red flannel, all of the inks, it's a very colorful process. So finding moments where we could add splashes of color and really make them pop in the cinematography and the color grading, that was really important. We wanted this to feel really vivid, like really, really rich.
I think a place is what you make of it. And I think really just meeting the people I met, meeting the friends that I've made, that's really what, helped me fall in love with indie.
Cool. That's that. Yeah, I just wanted to give you kind of like a director's breakdown of how I go about planning things, and how that helps me get to a final product that I'm happy with and that the people who work on it with me are happy with. If you're interested in more filmmaking stuff, let me know in the comments below. But that's really where I'm geared towards right now, is focusing on my film work career. So I'm hoping to post more directing work, more short documentaries, hopefully more narrative work, and maybe do some more breakdowns of that sort. So stay tuned. I don't know how frequently it'll be, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, keep an eye out. Thanks for watching.